Sourpuss dropped me a nasty note because he said, number one, who cares about Steve Millington's vacation? Well, Steve Millington was trying to explain to us what it's like when you go to a country that's primarily socialist compared to what life is like here. Uh, so what's the problem with that? And number two, the emailer also complained about, why do I have to have all of my old friends on from around the country? Do you think that a guy who had such a difficult time with the VA system, that there's something, what do you got against people who actually have served this country? And he's talking about hospitals not too far away from here. What part of that don't some of you people get? 9:30. Get your own show then. 9:34. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX and newsradio1310.com. 29, and we've got a caller with us in this segment of the program. You're up next. You're on KLIX.
Good morning, Bill. Reference your last caller. He referenced Salt Lake City. The majority of vets in Twin Falls go to the Boise VA. The Boise VA, as far as I have seen, is about between 1 and 3 in the United States.
Be a little bit closer by about half than going to Salt Lake, right?
I don't know how many go to Salt Lake, but
yeah, but the travel time is about half the distance if you go to Boise.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's an excellent. They saved my foot. I went in there with a diabetic ulcer. The head surgeon said, "I don't know if I can save your foot." She did. So the thing is, there are some bad situations for the VA, but Boise, Washington, Salt Lake City are superior.
And thank you for the call. I think and my guest was also explaining that he got good experiences some places, and there are other hospitals in the VA system that don't do such a good job. I have a friend, he actually goes to Bethesda. He retired from the Navy, he lives in the Washington area, and said that his treatment at Bethesda is wonderful. But the treatment across town at Walter Reed had been abysmal, which is why they closed it and merged it primarily with Bethesda. So I think the point being made, it's not every VA hospital in the country, but there are some that just aren't getting any better, and no one seems to be saying that they all need to have the same quality of care, and that is outstanding. And that's not happening. 9:36. You're up next, and you're on the air on Top Story.
Good morning, Bill. I just wanted to correct what the last caller was talking, and with your previous caller before that. The Twin Falls Clinic is hooked on to the Boise VA system, and I use Salt Lake. I live in Hazleton, but I use Salt Lake exclusively, but you have to request which way you want to go, either to Boise or to Salt Lake. You can't use them both at the same time, if you understand.
Sure.
My care provider's actually in West Valley, Utah, but I use the Salt Lake. But Twin Falls Clinic is hooked on to the Boise VA system. So if you use the Twin Falls Clinic, you will be going to Boise instead of to Salt Lake, and that's all I want to say.
Well, quickly too, if you mentioned Salt Lake, you get good quality care though.
Oh, very, very. I've been in the system since 1998, and I've had surgeries in Salt Lake, and they are, to me, they're excellent. They're very efficient. They're I just can't praise them enough. Now that I don't like the VA system for the administration, the higher administration, they're way off whack. But the hospital, the main hospital in Salt Lake, is very, very good. They try tremendously to meet your needs. And I don't go to Boise, so I can't say that.
Right.
What I will say is when I signed up in 1998, Boise VA would not allow me to register because I'm a small farmer, or I was a small farmer, and they said, you own ground, so you can't register for whatever reason. And that's the reason I went to Salt Lake, because they said, there's nothing, that's not a rule. You don't, there's no rule that because you own ground, you can't. But because they were so good to me, I just stayed there. It's about 30 miles farther to go to Salt Lake than it is to Boise for me.
Right,
so,
right.
Anyway, that's all I want to say.
I'm glad you're getting good care, and I thank you very much for the telephone call, because the details that people are bringing up in the few calls we've had in this segment point out the fact that, yes, in some places you can get great care in the system, but there's also sometimes some confusion in the system. And as my guest in the last half hour pointed out, some of the hospitals just simply aren't the same. So it comes back to that. How can we get the same quality, and that is an outstanding level of quality at each and every VA medical facility in the country, from top to bottom, whether it be one of the big name ones or whether it be one of the small ones. The fact of the matter is, I think what he's pointing out, and my guest Dennis Ketterer said the same thing. He gets great care in Salt Lake. He got terrible care in Arizona and Phoenix. Now, that shouldn't happen. It's a government-run system. You would expect everything to be standardized. Why not? And who's going to do something about it? Because we've got senators and congressmen who talk a good game when they come out looking for re-election, and they pop into your local American Legion or your VFW post. All right, what are they doing about it? That's the next big question. It's 30. Hey, we're warming up slowly. 30 today right now at the moment. It's high for the day. It's 9:40. Short break coming up. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. We're 20 minutes away from 10 o'clock. I got a chance to sit down this morning. I didn't hear Glenn Beck's program yesterday. Generally in the afternoon, I get quite a bit of Limbaugh and Hannity, but I don't, just because of the nature of what I'm doing in the afternoon, I don't hear a lot of Glenn Beck. Beck has apparently become very unpopular with the people who are now supporting Donald Trump for president. Did you know that? I want to talk about that perhaps in a few minutes. Just can't understand why. Maybe the fact that he claims Trump is the next Joe McCarthy and is going to ruin the country. I've never been in a political season where people have gotten, at least among Republicans who are known as being generally sedate, have gotten so worked up about politics like this year and the way things are shaping up. It's 28, 9:45. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Is our caller with us? No, I think we lost that caller. All right, caller was trying to reach me during the break, and I had to run off for a minute to fill my water bottle. I'll get to this caller in just a moment. Be patient. Stay on the line. I do want to tell you, if you're listening to this program, that's a wonderful thing. But if you're having difficulty listening, it may well be you need a free hearing screening. So you need to call Dr. Christine Pickup, a doctor of audiology at Mount Harrison Audiology in Rupert. You can reach her at 208-312-0957 or go to mountharrisonaudiology.com. Did you know that the health of the inner ear is affected by your cardiovascular and kidney health? The inner ear is very sensitive to changes in your blood supply. If you've had recent heart problems or kidney problems, you should have your hearing checked right away. You're on the air. You're up next on Top Story.
Good morning, Bill. Bill, for years I collected, going to yard sales, I collected wheelchairs, raised toilet seats, shower benches, walkers, and canes. And a Purple Heart veteran, Bob Wagner from Jerome, would pick them up, take them down to the Veterans Administration there and pass them out. And Bob Wagner, if you can get him on your radio show, he often repairs these wheelchairs, buys parts at expense of his own money, and then he passes them out, and often he drives 20, 30 miles a day passing out stuff to crippled veterans and their wives.
I've heard of his name, and I heard of his good work, too. I thank you for the call. You're up next. You're on the air with Bill Colley on Top Story on KLIX.
Good morning, Bill.
Morning.
I just wanted to make a comment about Steve Millington's report on his journey, and I found it very informative and very educational. And, you know, when a person totally closes their mind off to learning new things and about the different places of our world, they cease to exist as far as I'm concerned. So anyway, just wanted to thank you for him and for that education this morning.
Hey, thank you. I loved it, too. I thank you very much. I want to go there now. Well, actually, I wanted to go to New Zealand and Australia for many, many years. Quick story. Speaking of people who served in the military, one of my uncles serving in the 5th Air Force in World War II killed in 1943 in the Pacific. There is a museum in Brisbane, Australia, which is dedicated to the memory of those men. they have a roster of the dead that they keep at the museum. I looked it up online one day and I could not find his name. And I emailed the curator or the director of the museum and I pointed it out. I said, there's at least one name missing, if not perhaps more, but at least one that I know of, because I still have the old yellow telegram. It came down to me through the family. And I have the telegram. I also have the letter from General Hap Arnold that came to the family on Memorial Day in 1945, thanking the family as well for, giving up one of its sons so that, we could still live free. And the guy at the museum never wrote me back. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to collect all of those things. I've got it's like a yearbook that they issued. It's a book that the 5th Air Force issued to the various units. There's photographs of various people and drawings and cartoons. And I'd like to take that along with the telegram about his death and the letter from Hap Arnold. And I'd like to take all of those and go to Brisbane, walk in and knock on the door of the fellow who actually runs the museum and say, there you go. Now, this guy's name belongs on your memorial wall. 9:48, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. Also want to tell you this morning about our friends at High Desert Meat Processing in Twin Falls, where they process one animal at a time. What you bring in is what you're going to get back. Darren Van Horn, the owner, he's been doing this for over 3 decades. Been in the meat business that long. You can visit High Desert Meat Processing on Facebook and read reviews of other customers. Give High Desert Meat Processing a telephone call for wild game plus domestic processing needs, 734-9949. Everything is done in-house, including smoking. Nothing shipped out. Specialty meats too, pepperoni, Polish dogs, hot dogs, much more. USDA approved. Darren works closely with local beef growers and their programs, ensuring quality meat. The number 734-9949. We're about 10 minutes away now from 10 o'clock this morning on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. Top Story with Bill Colley. 29, again, the temperature ping-ponging around this morning. We have been up to 30. Not that you're going to say, aha, time to put on the bathing suit and go outside. Not going to happen anytime soon, right? I was talking a little bit about the political season, the political silly season we happen to be in. Yesterday, of all places, Glenn Beck was on TV last night, I think, with Megyn Kelly, but he made an appearance, get this, at CNN. Yes, he appeared on the Cuomo News Network. I say that because he was talking to Chris Cuomo. Chris Cuomo is a governor. Well, he's the brother of the governor of New York State. His father was also the governor of that state. We were talking socialism earlier with Steve Millington. New York State has become very much a socialist empire and is suffering because of that. Chris Cuomo seems to be delighted that Glenn Beck is taking on Donald Trump. Beck going so far the other day, if you didn't see this, it is available online in video. He reenacted a swearing-in ceremony, or at least projected a swearing-in ceremony, with Ted Cruz taking the oath of office as President of the United States. This is Beck warning on CNN, the Cuomo News Network, that Donald Trump is a menace to liberty.
We need a constitutional restraint on the executive branch. And Donald Trump, I really truly believe, is a very dangerous man. If you listen to Chris, some of the things he said this weekend.
Dangerous why? Obviously.
I could go on Fifth Avenue and I could shoot people and I wouldn't lose a single vote. He's joked about killing reporters like Putin. Actually, he's joked about not killing reporters like Putin does. He's a very dangerous man.
Do you think that actually telling a joke about something like that seriously means Donald Trump would start killing reporters? Do you really think the overwroughtness of so many people, even on my side of the political argument any longer, it's like people are losing their minds left and right. You figure a guy who's making, $20-30 million a year like Beck would be a little bit more sedate himself, but not happening. In fact, Cuomo mentions Trump attacked Beck as a lost soul.
I know you well enough to know that the personal attack isn't going to bother you, but do you think that you may be mistaking the mood of the country? Because obviously that is seen as the fuel of Trump's success thus far.
Oh, Chris, no, I'm not here to talk to you about the mood of the country. I'm here to talk to you about the Constitution and what I believe is an absolute right or wrong. We don't change with the mood of the country. That's the problem with our country right now. The Constitution is to anchor us in principles that that help temper the mood of the country. The mood of the country is very angry, but you never make a good decision when you're angry.
That's true, I would assume, although once in a while, the anger has actually fired a few of the endorphins that I've managed to get off a couple of good thoughts in between, especially when you're doing a radio show. This issue, this almost internal civil war within the conservative or Republican movement in this country, does resemble, on a larger level, our American Civil War and the fact that it splits families. Appearing last night on Sean Hannity's program on Fox News Channel, well, Donald Trump, as you know, is a reality TV star, or he was for the last decade. Speaking of reality TV stars, Phil and Willie Robertson from Duck Dynasty, and they're talking about the little division in their own family when it comes to endorsing various candidates. If you didn't see Hannity last night, I share this with you today.
The writer of our Constitution, James Madison, said this Constitution was written for a moral and religious people. It's wholly inadequate for any other. So I just looked at Cruz. He stood out in my mind as being a moral and religious man. I thought to myself, good enough for me. It's about that simple on my part. Willie, he's a grown man. He can vote for who he wants to. You know what I'm saying?
I understood, and you taught him to be himself. Willie, why Trump?
Well, I think since that was written, I think now our system is, honestly, I think it's broken. And I think a lot of the politicians are just more of the same. And I want somebody in there who can shake it up, who can change it up, who are not after the money and, after people telling them what to say. And I like a man who puts his money where his mouth is and pays for his own thing. And he's not in debt to anybody and says, hey, I'm going to do what I'm going to
do. Yeah, so there you got it. The Robertson family are completely divided about this situation. Here's the thing. If you're a voter, and it comes down to, if you don't like Trump and you don't like the way he's lived his personal life, but if he ends up with the Republican nomination, and you look around and you say, well, okay, I got 40 minor parties I could vote for, but I know that they aren't going to win this year. Would you vote for Trump if the alternative happened to be, I don't know, on a stage in Iowa last night?
I am the first candidate in either party to put forward a plan to move us to a 100% clean electric energy grid by 2050 and create 5 million jobs along the way.
We need a coalition that includes Muslim nations to defeat ISIS. And it's pretty hard to figure out how you're going to make a coalition with the very nations you need if you spend your time insulting their religion.
Hillary Clinton is running a lot of advertisements on gun issues. Interestingly enough, she's running most of them in New Hampshire, where she thinks it'll work, not running so many of them in rural Iowa.
All right, ask that question again. Now that you just heard the Socialist Forum from Iowa, answer that question again. If you think Trump is awful, is he still not better than those three voices you just heard? 9:55. I'll get to my caller in just a moment. I do want to mention our friends at Tint Lady, which will help protect your furnishings and all of your draperies, your carpets, and the like in your home if you get window tints. You can also get them for your business or your automobile. We've been telling you about Tint Lady for months now, located at 1887 Highland Avenue East in Twin Falls. They've been in business nearly a quarter century, locally owned and operated. And what they can do is they can come by, do a free estimate, and then install these tints. And, of course, you can call 736-8469 or go online, tintladyidaho.com. Open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., Saturday by appointment only, closed Sundays. And remember, don't squint, get tint. We have a caller joining us. You're up next. You're on KLIX with Bill Colley.
I know this makes me unpopular with a lot of my friends and family, but I would absolutely not vote for Trump. Because just recently I've said I'm not going to hold my nose and vote for another McCain. And I honestly, even though he hasn't been in politics, he's another McCain.
Despite the fact he's criticized McCain.
He's a turncoat. Just because he's criticized McCain doesn't mean anything. He criticizes everyone.
True. Anybody who criticizes him gets it back in spades.
And that's why I think that's one thing I like about him. But I still can't hold my nose and vote for another person. I vote my conscience, and I just can't do that.
I thank you much for the input. In fact, if folks are willing to do it, if you, like everybody has spare time. In this day and age, nobody has any spare time. I understand that. But if you go to our website, newsradio1310.com, there is a new section called Colley's Commentary. They did that because prior to read anything that I wrote down after a show or during my own spare time, which I have a little bit of, you had to go to a special tab, and then you had to go to another special tab and then read Colley's Commentary. But now it's right there on the page. As you page down the main page, you'll see a whole list of things that I've recently written. And one of those is a reflection yesterday on how difficult it's going to be for a great many of us. Do we have to hold our nose when we go into the booth in November and select a candidate? But I also pointed out, as much as I love Ted Cruz, it's still very difficult for a lot of us to accept. And I've heard the legal arguments, and they make sense. It's still difficult, though, to go vote for a candidate who was not born in the United States. Let's say you have a candidate and his parents they had been working as oil engineers in Tajikistan, the Islamic Republic of Tajikistan, and that guy was born there, and then he came home. He's an American citizen by the same definition. Would you be voting for that guy? I mean, this is the question. We have no choice this year that I think that we can all say 100% I'm behind that particular candidate. None. Everybody's got a few warts or a few skeletons in their closets. Maybe that's a better analogy. God willing, if the creek don't rise, they'll allow me to do this all over again tomorrow morning between 8 and 10 o'clock, right here on News Radio 1310 KLIX. Rush Limbaugh is next, following Fox News at 10 o'clock.